Hello, everyone. I'm Rick Wade, Senior Vice President of the United States Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our Equality of Opportunity in Action event series. We're bringing together business leaders, policymakers, and other stakeholders to discuss and advance public and private sector solutions to help close America's race-based inequalities and also create more opportunities to succeed. Today, we're hosting a powerful conversation with Brett Hart, President of United Airlines. We're going to learn about Brett's personal and professional experiences, his journey, as well as how the airline industry and United Airlines in particular are dealing with the pandemic, dealing with equality and diversity in aviation, as well as workforce challenges of the future. Why don't we just get started and join me in welcoming Brett Hart, President of United Airlines, to join me. Hey, Brett.
Hey, Rick. Thanks a lot. I'm really pleased to be here.
Well, listen, we're so thankful for this opportunity to share some time with you to get to know you. You've had an amazing journey, starting with growing up in I guess a small Southwest Michigan town. I grew up in a small town in South Carolina, back in the old textile town. Tell us about who you are, your story, and particularly your early years.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And since you grew up in a small town, you know there's nothing like it, and you appreciate it more after you are gone. And so it was a town of about 1,500 people. I am the last of four kids, and there's enough distance between the four of us that I'd like to think of myself as a pleasant surprise. My parents were small business owners in town. They both have high school educations, but two of the smartest business people that I've ever been around. My father's sort of side hustle at the time was actually being mayor of the city, which was a part-time job. But it was a great place to grow up. I moved to Chicago after undergrad at University of Michigan, and I've been in Chicago all but 2 years of my professional career, the 2 years which I spent in Treasury. Outside of that, I spent close to a decade at a major law firm, working my way up to partner, and then joined a consumer goods company, Sara Lee Corporation, which is no longer in existence, but became general counsel at Sara Lee Corporation, then moved over to United Airlines. And I have been at United Airlines now for approximately a decade, and started as general counsel, became chief administrative officer. I was acting CEO for approximately 6 months. And as of May of 2020, I became president. So it's been an interesting journey.
Well, interesting to say the least, and what a journey. And Brett, the reason I wanted you to share how you began, because it's oftentimes that we see where people end up and without having a full understanding of where they came from. And I think that's extremely important. Thank you for sharing that. Something else is interesting. I mean, you're the first African-American to become president of United Airlines in the airline 94-year history, and perhaps in the industry itself. And I was watching an interview that Roz Brewer did, who obviously is the new CEO of Walgreens, the only Black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company. And she was talking about what it means to be the first. And one of the things she said was one of her goals is to make that not being the last.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what does the first mean to you in your role at United and being the first Black president?
Yeah, it's interesting. Being first earlier in my career meant something different than being first at this point in my career. Very competitive, just like you, just like most folks. And I chased things when I was younger. And that's where the satisfaction came in and achieving it and getting it done. I see being the first, African-American president at United Airlines and the first in the history of the industry, really very differently than I would have at an earlier point in my career. It is an opportunity for me to do probably much like Roz was talking about, which is ensure that all avenues are open to anyone who is willing to pursue it and interested in pursuing it. There's a tinge of humility and at times a little sadness when we hear about the firsts we're all proud that it happens, but at the same time, we have to appreciate that, we are in 2021, and we're talking about firsts in terms of people of color at major corporations. It's fantastic that it's happening, but I think we're all looking forward to blowing past that and getting to a point where it's just a regular occurrence.
Yeah, so very well stated. I was thinking, at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we're the largest business advocacy organization in the world. We do well over 2,000 events a year. And I was just thinking about the last big event we did, over a year ago, was our big aviation summit. And I had the fortunate pleasure of leading a fireside chat with the presidency of American Airlines about a number of issues. And I myself just got on a plane for the first time since the pandemic, just a week or so ago. But 2020 has been just an unimaginable year of difficulty for the travel industry, particularly airlines. But I'm just curious about how's the industry doing at this point in time. Give us some insight of where you are now as an airline, United.
Yeah. Our story has played out on television and in newspapers, and it's been front and center because the pandemic has had an enormous impact on our industry. I'm happy to say at this point in time that I think we all see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, you can see it with domestic leisure travel. People are aching to get back to travel. They really are. They're aching to get back to some form of whatever the new normal will be. And we're seeing that absolutely in our domestic leisure travel. We're not quite seeing it yet on the business travel, and we're not seeing it on long haul international. But we at United Airlines, we're really confident that that's going to return as well. And when it returns, it is going to be very robust. We think that, as we were talking about earlier, there's just no substitute for interacting face to face. There's no substitute for human interaction. And I think that one of the things that we've all appreciated over the course of the last year is how much we value that and how much we miss it and how much we all need it. So the opportunity to get back to that human interaction is something that I think will be really, really important for all of us. And I think as long as people feel safe and they understand that they can travel and remain healthy, then they're going to be very eager to get back to travel. And certainly United Airlines, and I'm sure with our competitors, we will all be ready for that to occur.
Yeah, and what a way for you to lead, if I'm not mistaken. Now, this is your first year as president. Is that not correct? And you're having to deal and have kind of brought the airlines or bringing United through this very difficult time. I'm just curious about any specific philosophies or thoughts or strategies that you relied on to kind of get you in this first year at the helm of United.
Yeah, well, 2020 was a big transition year for our company. My boss, Scott Kirby, the CEO, also transitioned to the CEO role on the same day that I became president, and our former CEO, Oscar Munoz, became chairman of the board. And those were long thought out succession planning occurrences, but they all happened in the midst of the pandemic. So we have all, along with the rest of the leadership team, just been very focused on being as transparent throughout this entire process as we possibly could be, both with our employees and our team members, but also with the traveling public. And that has paid dividends at the end of the day. We've set short-term goals that we achieved, and we celebrated along the way. And we have communicated and over-communicated, if that's even possible, with our team members to ensure that they understood exactly how we were thinking about the pandemic, what it would take to get through it, the difficult decisions that we had to make, the impact that it would have on them, but our focus and our plans for returning to service and, importantly, returning better than we were before. And that's a really important part of, I think, the whole process for us is that from the very outset, our focus has been on improving and being a better company on the backside of this pandemic, both from our business operations, but also culturally. We've made some significant steps to ensure that we could accelerate our growth and our trajectory towards being a global leader in the industry. And I think that we've done that, and I think our employees recognize it. And it's made the sacrifices that we've all had to make during this period understandable and worthwhile.
Well, you bet. And as you know, the U.S. Chamber has been walking this journey with you as well as other industries to kind of get business going again. Let me turn to something else that, speaking of challenges, we've all watched how racial inequality and social justice kind of become front and center in America, particularly since the murder of George Floyd. And we all watched and witnessed how that played out in our country. But we also watched our companies in boardrooms across America have stood up. They're all grappling with, or in a really interesting way, these tough questions about breaking down race-based barriers. How do we think about diversity and creating inclusive workforces, and as well as, race in our society and how we deal with these inequalities? Just curious about how you've seen this play out at United and how you've been leading and United in addressing some of these other challenges in our society.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Became president and Scott became CEO on May 20th, and within a week we had George Floyd's murder. I think it presented for us an opportunity to just put our guards down and speak very openly and begin a process for dialogue in our own company that I think has never occurred before. And we took the time to do it, and we took the time to do it at all levels of our organization, and to encourage discussions that otherwise may have been uncomfortable, but to allow people to talk about both the impact of George Floyd's murder, but also what it means to be either a person of color or a woman or LGBTQ, whatever it is that makes them unique, what it means to bring that to the workforce and to bring that to the job and to be able to perform and to do their jobs and be their full selves at the highest possible level. And a lot of that simply had to do with having conversations and engaging in a way that we haven't engaged in the past. It also gave us an opportunity, quite frankly, to do a reset. To pause, to take a look at what we've been doing that has been successful, what we've been doing that hasn't been successful throughout our organization. Every member of the executive team is now a member of the Executive Diversity Council, including Scott, which I lead. We meet monthly. I meet 3 times a year with every member of the executive team to discuss DE&I strategies, challenges, and hiring, development, retention, promotion. But further, we're taking that down throughout the entire organization. So I also meet with the direct reports of every member of the executive team to talk about those strategies and to develop unique approaches based on their individual organizational needs that then roll up to our overall goals and perspectives, and they roll all the way up to our board of directors. So it's given us the opportunity in all respects across our entire organization to just be open and honest about who we are as a company and who we want to be and how we can succeed, in particular with DE&I, which for us, we used to talk about it in terms of it trying to convince people that we should be treated like a business imperative. And now we only talk about it in terms of DE&I being a business imperative, and incorporating it fully into our strategy, and making sure that it is reflected, that it is measured, and that we all have accountability for our success in this area.
Yeah, thank you for making that observation. And it is a business imperative. I mean, we know the moral case for diversity, and I would even say equality, is indisputable. but just as sound is the business case. And you're absolutely right. We have to lead from that perspective. When we think about the aviation workforce in general, even despite the pandemic, am I correct in my understanding that commercial airlines already or were expecting a shortage of pilots and mechanics in the coming years, and how has that influenced, or does it influence, the industry's need to expand opportunities in the industry, particularly to more diverse candidates?
Yeah, without question, it's a great point. In particular, as it relates to pilots, we have a mandatory retirement age, and for the industry industry, we have a significant number of pilots who, over the course of the next decade, will reach that mandatory retirement age. We've spoken openly about our need to hire pilots over the course of the next decade, and that's something that every airline is grappling with. And so we traditionally get a number of our pilots from the military, from other carriers. It's a very competitive process. The military, it's no secret, is turning out fewer pilots than it used to. And so all of us have to think about opening the funnel for access to this, what is an incredible career path. And there is certainly, in our estimation, a wealth of untapped talent in communities with people of color and with women. Yeah, we have to focus on that, and we have to break down what we see as some of the barriers to success in that area. We're very focused on that, and I think you've probably seen our recent announcement around the development of the Aviate Academy. So it's something that's really important to us.
Listen, that Aviate Academy, I applaud you. Congratulations. I mean, because it's tangible, it's measurable. I think you're looking to train some 2,500 pilots, women and people of color. And that's extremely important. I was talking at Aviation Summit not too long ago. I brought up a delegation from Tuskegee University to be a part of that summit, because HBCUs, as you're aware, are such a rich source. Absolutely. And so, but I commend anything else you can share about that exciting Aviate Academy.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very proud of it. We are at the moment the only major airline in the country that will be operating a pilot academy. And what we've said is that we've set the goal of training and eventually hiring 5,000 pilots from that academy by the year 2030. And our goal is for half of the pilots that we train through that academy to be people of color and women. And we think that is infinitely doable in a country of 300 million people. And one of the most significant issues that people of color and women have had is that there is a significant financial barrier to becoming a pilot. It can cost upwards of and over $100,000, and the process can take years. And the path to becoming a pilot at a major commercial airline is not absolutely clear. And so we've made that process clear by stating that if you are part of our academy, then we will show you the clear path if you are successful to becoming a pilot at United Airlines. What's further, we have established scholarships in partnership with Chase, and also are establishing relationships, in particular with Black-owned banks throughout the United States, to provide further financial assistance if it's necessary for anyone participating in the academy. But as I mentioned before, we strongly believe, and I personally believe, and every member of the executive team believes, that there's just tremendous talent out there that to date has not been tapped. And we intend to be very deliberate about it through HBCUs, other college campuses, other paths. We're going to get out and make sure that people understand what a great career this is. And we have the best training programs on the face of the earth. They will be FAA certified. They will be tremendous pilots when they graduate from this program and make their way through the full process. And at the end of the day, we not only consider it, again, to be a business imperative, but we think it's going to be a competitive advantage.
That's outstanding. Absolutely. One of the areas, though, as we think about pathways and diversity, is in the area of the C-suite and corporate leadership. We announced a partnership with the National Association of Corporate Directors called the Board Accelerator Diversity Initiative, where we're committing to identifying and preparing and connecting 250 Black executives to corporate boards. I was reading an article in Forbes, Brett, where it talked about just 3.3% of executives or senior leadership positions in Fortune 500 companies are Black. But how do you think about, how should we be thinking about pathways to leadership within companies across the United States? Any lessons learned or guidance that you can provide on that front?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think first and foremost, we have to be very deliberate about it. Again, corporate America throughout its history has been phenomenal at solving some of the most complicated issues and problems that this country has faced. Simply saying that it is too hard to find people of color to develop and to promote, in particular to the C-suite, this is not an acceptable response. We have to be very deliberate about development plans. We have to be very deliberate about sponsorship. We have to be very deliberate about identifying and nurturing and developing talent, and then creating opportunities. If you look at my time at United, I started as a general counsel with a very fixed set of responsibilities. But one of the things that I have benefited from is having opportunities to do new and different things. And I'm sure that in some people's minds, there was risk associated with me taking on some of those responsibilities. But there was tremendous upside for me personally and professionally, and for the company, and allowing me to do that. And so, both, throughout corporate America, we have to become much more deliberate about supporting talented people across our organizations, including people of color and women, and presenting those opportunities, and not looking at it from a risk perspective, but from an opportunity perspective, and again, as a competitive advantage. And I don't know too many people who will turn down the opportunity to pursue another level in their professional career, just because of what might be deemed as risk. And it doesn't mean that everyone's going to succeed, but that doesn't, again, if it doesn't have to be a deterrent. It's about opportunity and support, and being, again, extremely deliberate about it.
Yeah. Brett, thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you maybe one or two final questions as we kind of wind down. But this conversation is extraordinary and important, because as we're talking to you about your professional journey, you can't extract from your personal story. And as I was thinking, as you were talking, when you look at Brett and Rick, we've achieved a degree of success by all of our standards. But I do remember, growing up in that small town where I grew up in South Carolina, in a racially segregated, legally segregated community, where the laws were. I didn't go to a integrated school until middle school. It wasn't my choice, but that was the law. But my point is that for all of the success that Brett and Rick and many others have achieved, so many did not. And that was attributed, unfortunately, to some of our racial inequalities. So I've seen racial inequalities in society and have looked racism in the eye. And for some, it creates pessimism. For us, we were optimistic. But I'm just curious as we kind of wind down, if you've ever looked racism in the eye and had any personal experiences there, because I don't know that people understand the toll of racism on us as individuals, as a community, and as a society. And then how did you overcome that? And then the last part of that is, what gives you the most optimism? What makes you optimistic in this place where we find ourselves in America?
Yeah, that's again a great question, and no doubt I have faced, and much like you, Rick, different forms of racism. Some of it is very blatant, and I will tell you that I have reacted to that in different ways, based in large measure on how mature I was at the time and when it occurred. But almost always in my younger years, with seething anger, and as you know, you carry that with you. I mean, you have to find a place for it. You have to find an outlet, and often, we just carry it. But what it has done, and some of the not so blatant issues that we face in everyday life now, that can be just as detrimental. I mean, we could do another 30 minutes on bias and unconscious bias. But what it does for me, as I'm sure it's done for you, is make you even more driven, and most assuredly more focused on ensuring that now, as we reach different points in our careers where we can actively work to bring down any real or perceived barriers, to make it possible for people, even when we think about corporate America, to bring their whole selves to work, and especially what is unique and special about them, their cultural backgrounds, their experiences, and to feel comfortable doing that, and to just add value as the person that they are, as opposed to looking across the room and trying to figure out, how they're supposed to present themselves in order to be successful. That's real power for us in the spaces in which we operate. But as I think about this also, Rick, I have a 17, 15, and a 12-year-old, and they're all boys. And so everything that has happened in the last year, and everything that continues to happen, I also have to think about in the context of the young men that my wife and I are raising, and the lessons that we are trying to convey, and the very adult lessons and conversations that we are forced to have with children, who ought to be allowed to just be children for some period of time. But I will tell you, looking at the way that as a whole, that we as a community and largely as a country, I mean, look, there's a fair amount of ugliness, and it's out in front. But as a whole, as a country, the way that we have responded, the way that I feel that United Airlines has responded, the way that my own family and the way that I am trying to respond to everything that we have faced over the course of the last year, including on the personal and social side. I'm optimistic because I see resilience, and I see hope, and I see sort of that burning desire for us to be better, as a company, better as people, and better as a country. I do see that, despite everything that we have experienced over the course of the last year. So, I want to make sure that we don't forget or overlook any of it, and that we use it all to move forward as quickly as we possibly can in every respect. But at the same time, I feel great about the resilience that we've all shown and our ability to acknowledge that this world and this country is not perfect, and that we have to be able to talk about it, and when necessary, we need to be prepared to take action to remedy it.
Well, Brett, listen, man, you give me optimism, and I want to thank you for joining us for this amazing conversation. And I got to end with just the last final question, which I promise you is the most difficult question that you've ever gotten. And that is, just give me one thing that you do for fun. What do you do for fun? Where do you find joy? Is it a movie? Is it a book? Do you run? Just give us something that you do for fun, man.
Yeah, I will tell you, over the course of the last year, I really, and given all the circumstances, I have fun playing with my guys, my boys, and they're close in age, but they're so different. And their perspectives on life are so different. So that has been, for me, one of the blessings of the last year, as tough as it has been. My ability to get to know my sons all over again, and in a lot of respects, on the real positive side, to get to know my wife again and to have more time than I did previously, at least in their presence. It feels like I'm on video conferences and I'm working, longer hours, but in a lot of instances, I'm still doing it in their presence, and I love it, and I will cherish that.
You bet. Brett, thank you again for joining us. Look forward to getting to know you better, to working together and creating equality of opportunity for all Americans. Thank you all for joining us. This has been the U.S. Chamber's Equality of Opportunity in Action conversation. We look forward to continuing this dialogue and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.